What's up, you guys? This is Justin Baca here from the Baca Project, where together we are going to be discussing life's most difficult topics, questions, things like this that we have a hard time answering. And I'm going to do my best to answer them both using common sense and the timeless wisdom found in the greatest book ever written, the Bible. Now, today we are going to be discussing something that has rattled the human brain for millennia. And that's going to be the beginning of it all, the ending of it all, and does God exist? Does God not exist? Things like this. But I love discussing these things from the secular perspective. Now, recently I just stumbled upon a video from Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan Experience, and he was discussing this very thing with someone, one of his guests. And I think that he had a really interesting perspective. Now, I don't think Joe Rogan's going out and getting baptized tomorrow and spreading the gospel to the world, but I do think that he uses common sense to try to understand difficult subjects, and what came out was pretty cool. So we're going to be watching that video together and then be discussing it, breaking it down bit by bit to try to have a good, clear understanding of the secular point of view, a commonsensical point of view. And then at the end, after this video, we're going to be breaking down what the Bible has to say about these things. So I'm going to jump right into it, and we'll check it out.
If space is space, you know, if they're like, oh, it's like blowing up a balloon where everything's okay, but you're blowing up a balloon in a room,
right?
So what's the room that you're blowing the balloon into? And then that's in a bigger room, and then that's in this.
And then there's the concept that it's actually finite. It's not infinite, and it's some sort of donut shape. It like goes back around eventually.
But then who made all that?
Right?
Like, is there a God? Did God make this,
or is God the universe?
Yeah, but then who made God?
And that's a great thing to discuss, is like, who did God make all this? And then Joe says, well, maybe God's the universe. And then he goes, well, yeah, but who made God? And I think he made a really clear observation, I think more subconsciously than anything, but he understood that the universe is a created thing. So God cannot be the universe because God was who created the universe. If God was the universe, then he would be showing that he was a created thing. And then if he was created, then who created him? Where is the beginning? And so at Genesis 1:1, God was in the beginning. John 1:1, Jesus Christ was in the beginning. And so there is a beginning, and that's God. And so they're understanding this, again, not from biblical understanding, not from being taught in church or things like this, just using common sense in their mind, their God-given mind, to try to understand that there was a beginning, and who was that beginning, or what was that beginning. And it cannot be a creation, because if a creation is the beginning, then who created that? And so that's a really interesting thing. I wanted to point that out real quick. We'll go into the next part.
And that bothers me.
Right, but
like, who made that thing?
Is that a thing that we think that, like, because we were born and we die, that we have these biological limitations that we attach to the universe itself?
That's fair. That we see things as being built and destroyed.
That there's always been something. Well, wouldn't it be crazy if there wasn't something at one point in time? That seems even crazier. Then there always has been something. Because if it's just something, if it's just the nature of everything, there is always something, right?
Right.
It couldn't be nothing and then all of a sudden everything. That seems...
Because what started that? What kicked that off?
Exactly.
What snapped its fingers?
That's McKenna's great line. Terrence McKenna.
So before we go into McKenna's great line, I wanted to address that. And that is the most logical conclusion you can ever come to, is that it's not possible for there to be nothing and then everything without a source, without something that sparked it off, without what he used was snapping their fingers and bringing it all into place. And so to understand that is to go into creation theory, or creation understanding, I think is a better word for it. But it is to go into the idea that everything was created by one source. And there's only one God in the universe that's ever existed, that in religion. I'm not talking about like idols or pagan worship and things like that, but there's only one God. Out of all the gods that have claimed to be God, there's only one that's actually claimed that he created the universe. And that's my God. That's our God if you're a believer. It's the God of the Bible. He claims that he created the universe. And these are two non-believers, secular people that understand that there had to have been a beginning. And so we'll keep going into it.
I had a great line about the difference between science and religion is that science only asks you for one miracle. I want you to believe in one miracle, the Big Bang.
Yeah.
And again, he's saying once you believe in something as miraculous, as incredible as the Big Bang Theory and even evolution, right? Watching, an amoeba turn into, a lizard, into a toad, or whatever the whole progression is, that's a miracle in itself. It naturally doesn't happen. I mean, I've had animals. I've lived on this earth for long enough that I haven't seen things morph into another thing like a Pokemon. These are things that without divine intervention couldn't happen. And it's saying science only asks you to believe in one miracle, and he's implying a religion asks you to believe in a few. And so I want to hear what Joe's response is on this, and I think it's pretty incredible. If you guys have seen it, then but if you haven't, this is what Joe Rogan himself is saying about religion. So pretty cool.
That's a good one.
It's a great line.
Yeah.
It's because it really is true.
Yes.
And it's funny because people would be incredulous about the resurrection of Jesus Christ, but yet they're convinced that the entire universe was smaller than the head of a pin, and for no reason that anybody's adequately explained to me that makes sense.
Yeah. No.
Instantaneously became everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't buy that.
I'm sticking with Jesus on that one.
Yeah.
Jesus makes more sense.
It makes a hell.
And that's the summary of it all. I mean, like he was saying, Jesus makes more sense. You're telling me that the universe was nothing and then blew up into everything, out of chaos became order. These things don't make sense. They really don't if you logically think about them. But to think that God, the creator of all, the creator of humanity, could make himself into a human and then die and then rise again, that really seems far-fetched to you. That really seems difficult to understand. That seems difficult to comprehend, to believe. And that's kind of the pinnacle of what I think he was saying is like, well, you're telling me that you think it's difficult to understand that God could come back from the dead, from being a human that he created. You're saying that's difficult to understand, but you think it's easy to understand something that you can't even explain in a logical way. And so that is the thing. I love that the other guy, the guest, I don't know his name, I forget, but he said, I want to see things. I need to see things like this happen at this day with this person at this time. And there's no other religion in the world. There's no other book in the world of scripture or religious text that gives that much information. This person was at this place at this time during this holiday or this season and did this thing and talked to this person. Here's a witness of everything that happened and transpired. And so that's something that only Christianity can offer you. And so if you're saying, well, I can't believe in Christianity because I need evidence. Well, Christianity gives the most evidence of any other belief system. Well, you might say, oh, what about atheism? I'd rather just believe there's nothing. Yeah, but there's no evidence that there's nothing. There's no evidence that there's nothing out there. So you're saying you want evidence. Well, Christianity can offer you that evidence. And you're saying, well, I don't want to believe in something with blind faith. Fine, don't believe in it with blind faith. Research it. Start understanding. You don't want to take the Bible at its word and just sit there and read it. I think that's foolish, but go ahead. Go into secular text from those days. Like Josephus, one of the most famous secular antiquities and historical, I don't want to call them theologian, but historical minds that went through and studied ancient Jewish culture and what happened in Israel. And if you need to study that, then study that. He's a secular. He did not believe in Jesus, but he also notes that Jesus of Nazareth had a ministry in Galilee, died on a cross under Roman occupation in 32 AD, and when 2.5 days later, whatever, 3 days later, the tomb was empty, he understood that. And so there's so much historical details that our world gets from Josephus, yet he wasn't a believer. There's so much detail in his studies that Christian theologians use every single day, yet he wasn't a Christian. So fine, go ahead, go look into the secular things. But again, if you're looking for evidence, actually look for evidence, not opinions. Now, I believe, and I know, that the Bible has incredibly detailed evidences inside of it. If you really have studied, then you will know that as well. I had a guy comment on one of my videos, and he goes, I read the Bible, and I became an atheist after. Well, I 2 points I want to make on that is, one, most likely you were an atheist before, and two, I highly doubt you read the Bible. Not because, oh, well, it can't be challenged. The Bible can be challenged over and over. It will win every argument. But the thing is I know people that have been dedicated to serving the Lord for their entire life, 30, 40, 50 years. And it's one of the biggest challenges of their life to read the Bible on a regular basis or to read the entire thing. So to tell me that you went into reading the Bible, not even believing that the God of the Bible is real, read the entire thing, and then at the end decided that you weren't a Christian, or you didn't believe in God at all, there's no existence of God in the universe, just seems foolish. And that brings me into my next statement. So we're going to go into a few verses of what the Bible actually has to say about this type of thinking, that Joe Rogan is saying with his common sense is just dumb. Like, you really think that? It makes more sense to believe in God. It makes more sense to believe in Jesus Christ rising from the dead than it does to believe in atheism. So we'll go into it. Oh, wow, that got all messed up. Okay, let me move that over. Sorry about that. I hate to edit right in the video, but gotta do it sometimes. So this is Psalms chapter 14, verse 1. It says, "The fool says in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They do abominable deeds. There is none who does good." Now, this is something that you have to understand, is that God is saying clear as day, a fool says in his heart, there is no God. This is not of course, it was written by David, but this is not just towards the Jewish people. This is to all people. Now, he understood that some people didn't have the experience of God, of the Bible. He understood that people didn't have the scriptures, the Torah, things to study on and glean from and understand who the true God is. But they still were searching for this God that created everything. They weren't foolish enough to think that everything just came from nothing and there is no God. That's foolish. And so that's basically what the Bible is saying here. And we'll go into the next verse here, which is Psalms chapter 19, verse 1. It says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork." So even the earth glorifies God. Even the earth speaks of God's existence. If you, again, you can, just by looking at it, you have to admit that there's a God. You need to understand there's a God. It's very obvious. Now, what God is it? Well, if you're looking at all the different gods, there's only one that claims that he made all of this. So out of all the gods that do not claim it, there's only one, and that's the God of the Bible. And so if you're sitting there going, well, okay, I don't believe in the God of the Bible, but I believe God made it. Okay, but not even those other gods believe that they made it. Only God of the Bible admits, acknowledges, says it, takes claim over it, and says, I made this. This was my creation. And the Bible says that the heavens, the sky, the earth, everything on the earth claims and shows God's handiwork in it. And I want to go into one more verse. This is the New Testament. So this is Jesus Christ, Yeshua, discussing and talking with people, and these people were talking to him, and then I want you to show his response. So it says, "As Jesus was drawing near, already on the way down from the Mount of Olives, the whole multitude of his disciples began to rejoice and praise God with a loud voice for all of the mighty works they had seen, saying, 'Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest.' And some of the Pharisees in the crowd said to Jesus," or it said to him, "Teacher, rebuke your disciples." And he answered, "I tell you, if these were silent, the very stones would cry out." So he is just completely acknowledging his deity, and he's saying it and taking claim over it right there and then. And he's saying that I can't tell these people to stop, because if they don't praise me, creation itself will glorify me. And that goes hand in hand with that Psalms 19 verse 1 verse, where it says that the earth praises God and glorifies him, showing that he is the creator of them all. Now, I wanted to go through the thing that Joe said at the very end, and he talked about this man named Terence McKenna. And he said the difference between science and religion is that science only asks you to believe in one miracle. Again, that's so true. They're asking you to believe in one miracle. And he was not a believer. He was totally wacko, did a bunch of mushrooms and LSD, and he was, doing some weird things. He was like a Tibetan monk for a while. Then he went to Jerusalem and studied the Kabbalah, which is like witchcraft, and really crazy guy. But he, even through all this craziness, even through his psychedelic experiences, understood that God was real, that God had to have existed to create all of this. But he said one thing that I wanted to break down is that he said that science depends on empirical evidence, where religion depends on faith and tradition. Now, again, most religions, that's super correct. I just don't believe that Christianity depends on that exactly, because Christianity depends on facts. They depend on what has happened, what has transpired, what the accounts, the testimonies of others, the written documents, all of the different things that have happened, let alone in Israel right now, they're digging up archaeological digs proving that the existence of Israel was there 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, or maybe it was 3,500, I think, if I'm not mistaken, but that they were there, and that there's artifacts that show the existence of a civilization. It shows the existence of a temple. It shows the existence of 2 temples, which the Bible talks about. It shows the existence of the tabernacle down in Shiloh and all of the artifacts that were brought up from Shiloh to Jerusalem. It shows the city of David. I mean, all of these things have been uncovered and proving constantly that the Bible holds true. Anytime someone goes and tries to attack the Bible, they are proven to be wrong. And, one thing that's really interesting is that the architects, non-believers, some of them are rabbinic Jewish or Orthodox Jewish, or some of them are just flat out like agnostic, and they use the Bible to actually point out and map where certain things are in Israel as they're digging. So, I mean, it's incredible how detailed it is. A book that has traveled for thousands of years, and there's all those statements about how it was edited, and verses were taken out and verses were added in, and different things have happened. There's so many arguments against it, yet that same book that has been edited and changed over thousands of years is still used to show in Israel where things were. And they can use that Bible and pinpoint something, dig down, and they will find exactly what they're looking for. And that's an incredible proof for the existence and the truth of the Bible. Now, one thing I want to say to you, one last thing I want to address, is that it's a statement I've heard over my life, and my father actually said it to me, and he says, when you doubt God, you're calling God a liar, and you're saying that you're the truth. Where as a humble human being, if you understand that there is an almighty power above you, and I know his name, but even if you don't admit that my God Yahweh is the God, but if you're calling the God a liar, whatever that God is, which again, that's a whole nother conversation. I don't want to get too into it, but if you're calling God a liar and saying that I'm the truth, you're a liar, I'm doubting you, I'm doubting your promises, I'm doubting your sovereignty and your provisions, then I mean, what are you? You're just as foolish as the man that says there is no God. To call God, the creator of truth, the creator of reality, a liar, and you're the truth. I think that at one point we have to admit, and we have to challenge ourselves that we have to tell God, you know what, God, you're the truth, I'm the liar. And I think when you come to that place, you can really start to watch as your life changes, and you'll actually see that's the beginning of what faith actually is. Because you're depending on a promise that you know he'll keep because he's the truth. So if you like this kind of content, if you like this video, please like it, comment, share, subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. We're trying to grow this channel, trying to get this thing out there so people can be helped and serviced and administered to, as there are so many challenging arguments against the existence of Christianity, the existence of the Bible, the existence of Israel. These things are so important, and I believe that it's such a massive, important thing that we have a clear understanding on what truth is in a world that is constantly trying to distort it. So thank you guys so much again. Subscribe to watch more and put the alerts on so you can see when I post a new video. Take care.